Presidents of Russia and Turkey have agreed to step up bilateral consultations on Syria's Idlib province to reduce tensions and guarantee a ceasefire in the militant-held region. Agreement was made during a phone call between Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Putin expressed serious concern about the aggressive actions of militants in Idlib. The Turkish president also called on his Russian counterpart to stop the Syrian government's military operations there. The Syrian army has intensified its efforts to fully liberate Idlib, which is the last stronghold of militants in the country. But Turkey has reinforced its positions to prevent the Syrian military's advances. Turkey has lost 16 military personnel this month in clashes with Syrian troops in Idlib. And now joining us for this news review is Muhammad Ali, Press TV correspondent from Damascus, and Syed Shah, author and Middle East affairs expert, joining us from Belfast. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to the program. Mohammed, we'll start with you to get the latest. Go ahead, bud.
The military operation, and particularly with the artillery and tank strikes against the terrorist positions west of Aleppo and also south and southeast of Idlib. West of Aleppo around Al-Atarib and Dar al-Azzeh, and south of Idlib against the terrorist positions and supply lines around Al-Arba'in mountain and Kafar Nibul and several other areas like Ariha. Now, this is an indication that the Syrian army is determined, as it said so many times before, to continue regardless of the Turkish threats. And also this is a confirmation and an interpretation of what Syrian President Bashar al-Assad said several days ago, that the battle for the liberation of the countryside of Aleppo and Idlib will continue regardless of what he described as the empty sound bubbles coming from the north, meaning the Turkish threats. Now, of course, we're witnessing now also consultations between Russia and Turkey, but let's not forget that Russia is the side that gave the green light for the Syrian army's offensive, because at the end of the day, those terrorists are using their positions there to attack Syrian government troops, civilians, and also the Russian Hmeimim air base. And it was Russia, the side that assisted the Syrian army 2 days ago in repelling a major Turkish-backed terrorist attack, which also such strikes by Russia led to destroying a tank and also 6 armored vehicles, and in addition to 5 machine gun equipped vehicles for the terrorists. Now, also reports on the ground refer that there are around 250 terrorists killed in the past terrorist attack on Al-Nayrab in Aleppo countryside. And this development is very important because according to Syrian media, Turkish media outlets are trying to launch a propaganda, a false propaganda that the terrorists were not, there wasn't a lot of terrorists killed and that the Syrian army soldiers were killed. But the Syrian media says that no, it was the terrorists who were killed, 250 of them, and their bodies are still scattered around Al-Nayrab.
Thanks, Mohammed. I'm swinging over to you, Mr. Syed Shah. Your thoughts on all this?
You see, Turkey still insists it won't no conflict with Moscow over the Syrians' army offensive against these terror outfits. But meanwhile, you can see the Turkish officers said they might receive U.S. defense missiles to protect their Turkish forces near the border. And one of them, Turkish officials in Ankara, even said, we asked the U.S. to conduct aerial patrols in airspaces in the bordering Idlib to show support for Turkey's imminent attack against Syria. And the same thing, they express NATO as well. They asked NATO's support to provide extra support for Turkey. And we notice as well, even if the phone call between Putin and Erdogan and they accept some sort of deals in here, but Russia insisted in rejecting any kind of summit between Erdogan and Putin to de-escalate the situation in Idlib. It's all the calls of the Erdogan on the Russians fell on deaf ears in Moscow. So this is why, because I expect already Moscow deactivated the S-400 missiles batteries, which is sold Turkey recently, which is the Americans were very annoyed about. So we can see even the Russian Defense Ministry publicly were accusing the Turkish of breaking the agreement of 2018 in Sochi or the understandings, which is at least by Turkey's today showing its open support for terrorist gangs, terrorists classified as terrorists, and Turkey provide them for with air cover, with cannon fire, and all of that against the Syrian army. So Erdogan now he is in a very difficult situation. He even to commit himself to apply all what they agreed in Sochi, or keep his what they call it sound bites coming. That's all what he can offer. Sound bites threatening the Syrian army. Syrian army is battle hardened and continue to liberate its land and to impose its sovereignty in its all cities, Idlib and the rest. So the theory or the idea of Turkish sphere of aloof influence in North Syria is gone, which is this is what Bolton in 2016 told the New York Times. They were trying to develop between North Syria and North Iraq a mini state which can safeguard all these terrorist and military or armed terrorist gangs in North Syria and create a mini state in there to save them so they can be used in the future. And this is what the Turkish, they called the safe zone for them to use for civilians, which this is the American project, to create a mini state to save all the outfits, the terror outfits they created in that area, so can they be used again. And as well, this is fall with, the Turkish have a vision in 2023, there will be the centenary of the Treaty of Lausanne, 100 years gone, so create another Sykes-Picot, and so Turkey can be supported by the West and United States of America to annex the north of Syria and north of Iraq. This is the plan, and this is what the Americans supporting them in.
And Mohammed, I want to swing back over to you now. I mean, this has to really put a huge challenge now on the table for Damascus, because how is this supposed to, if we're going to another ceasefire and allow militants to regroup again, how is this supposed to cleanse northern Syria of militants, and at the same time, you know, basically at the behest of Vladimir Putin, respect Turkey's wishes?
Well, yes, definitely it's a very complicated situation, but if we read all of the statements of the Syrian Army Command, of also what Syrian President said, it doesn't seem that there is any kind of a ceasefire that will be implemented. But definitely there are developments happening, there are consultations, there are ongoing talks between Russia and Turkey regarding what will happen in Idlib. But definitely the Syrian army is determined to liberate every inch of Syrian territory. Those terrorists cannot be left over there inside Idlib, attacking the Syrian army, attacking the civilians, and also attacking the Russian Khmeimim airbase. So eventually those terrorists should be either killed or removed outside Idlib. Now we've seen how Turkey transported some of the armed groups from Syria to Libya. This could be a scenario, but it doesn't seem like Turkey wants to give up on those armed groups inside Idlib, and it wants them to stay there, because if it doesn't, it wouldn't have sent all of those reinforcements, hundreds of armored vehicles inside there. And there's also experts over here saying that if Turkey is actually serious about saving the lives of people, of civilians over there, why doesn't it put an end to the terrorist presence inside Syria, and then all of the refugees who are inside Turkey can return back to their homeland, and there would be no more refugees flowing from Idlib into Turkey. A lot of question marks on what actually Turkey wants, but it's definitely clear that the Syrian army does not intend to keep those terrorists positioned inside over there on its territory.
And Dr. Sohaib Shah, we only have about a minute left, but I want to get this question out to you before we're done. How does how does Recep Tayyip Erdogan get away with it? How does he, a member of NATO, openly and proudly and blatantly, basically, use his country as a state sponsor of terrorists in Syria and get away with it?
He's receiving the United States of America's support, even with all the scenarios which is unveil itself sometimes, and there is a conflict between Tayyip Recep Erdogan and the Trump administration. There is none. the Americans backing him up against the Europeans, because they're using the terror gangs in North Syria somewhere else, as we see in Libya or in Sinai. So this is a wealth invested by the United States of America in creating these outfits, and Turkey keeping them alive. And Turkey's reward in the future, as I said, to try to slice a piece of North Syria and north of Iraq, which will be wealthy with oil, and annex it to its territory with the blessing of the West. That's what they think they're doing. And the United States of America, all along, it was wanting to create a zone in there which can preserve these outfits for future use in different area in the Middle East and the Arab world, to destabilize this region. So the United States of America and Turkey are into this together. All along, Turkey is a great ally to the Zionist entity and to the United States of America to destabilize the region. So this is the line which the Turkeys always show themselves they can be active in serving the United States of America's agenda and destabilizing the region.
Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. Muhammad Ali from Damascus and Syed Shah joining us out of Belfast. And viewers, that's a wrap for this segment of your Press TV's News View. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye for now.